What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video where we are actually going to go pick up another part for the new third generation Iroc-Z Camaro. First thing I had to do is clean off a little bit of snow. We got an hour and a half drive because this is actually the closest one I was able to find anywhere locally, which kind of sucks. Not even wrecking yards have them. But it's going to be a good upgrade. So I'll clean the truck up a little bit and we'll go for a cruise and hopefully pick up a really nice part for the car. Alright, so I got my fuel and I'm ready to hit the road. What I'm going to go pick up, as you know by the thumbnail and title of today's video, is actually an aluminum drive shaft out of a 98 to 02 Camaro or Firebird. It would have to be a V8 model. But all the way from 1982 to 2002, I believe the V8 specific FBody platform has an interchangeable drive shaft, yoke, and length. So if you have a 700R4 or a T5 or a T56 or a 4L60 with a 10 bolt behind it, which is very important. There's a few odd ducks in the third generation Camaros and Firebirds that were 9 bolts, and those are different rear ends altogether. This more than likely won't work with those, as far as my research has told me, but this should be a direct drop-in to my 1986 Iroc-Z. I'm picking it up for 100 bucks, and what it's going to do is help me lose some rotational mass. And I can't remember what magazine did this, but there's an article I was reading about it amongst creeping on the third generation Camaro and Firebird forums and seeing what people have to say about it, what they thought about it, and if it's worth doing, and all that, etc. And they showed back-to-back on the same dyno, on the same car. It gained like 5 or 6 horsepower and an average of 8 or 9 pound-feet of torque, if I recall. Another added benefit to it is that you're going to have a balanced drive shaft. Now, they're also made to tighter, I guess, production tolerances than the steel drive shafts are. So there's going to be 3 big things I'm going to benefit from this. Right now, the car has a vibration around 50 miles an hour, if I recall exactly. I haven't paid super close attention, but I hit a harmonic in the driveline, I believe. And I'm really hoping it's going to be the drive shaft that's in it, and it's going to take care of this. So the preferred aluminum drive shaft to get for these cars is an actual 1LE drive shaft from 88 to 92 Camaros and Firebirds. It's a smaller diameter, but it has a lot thicker walls, and it's allegedly it's stronger, and it weighs maybe about the same. I really don't know the differences that well, but it is the preferred drive shaft that you get. That being said, they're a little bit harder to find, and there's almost a guarantee that you're going to have to ship them. So unless you can find a factory aluminum drive shaft out of a third generation Camaro or Firebird to swap in, this is a really good alternative to do, and that's the route that I ended up actually having to go because I was really unable to find one. So all that being said, this is going to be a really good upgrade for my third generation Camaro or a third generation Firebird. Either one would stand to benefit from it, in my opinion. I think it's a worthwhile upgrade to throw a couple bucks at and see if it actually does feel quicker, which most people report the car feeling quicker, and by all rights, it should feel quicker. That being said, it does not mean that this is a really strong unit you're going to want to do some hardcore drag racing or anything with, because they do have a tendency to twist up like a pop can if you have a sticky tire, and especially with a stick car. It's the reason that I actually took mine off of my Trans Am and bought the steel drive shaft that the guy bought with his strange rear end that I installed last winter, and I actually ended up selling that aluminum drive shaft, and I sold the factory 10 bolt, which would have also been a really good upgrade on this third gen. So I'll probably have my eyes out for a 10 bolt as well, something with 342 or better rear gear ratio, and obviously being limited slip, because right now my car is not. And it will probably also have disc brakes. So if I can do that all in one shot out of a third gen car, it is going to be money well spent. A couple $100 bucks would make that car right up there with what an actual 1LE car would have been from the factory from, I think they were 88 to 92.
The clouds have been gathering. You may feel hopeless, but I'll never let you go. Fly through the stratosphere and then I'll rip and scream it from your soul. Oh, we'll watch it fall.
Alright, so we've made it to our exit, and we've only got another 10 or 15 minutes to go to meet him. The guy actually got back to me finally after like a day and a half of silence, which is awesome because I'm about to actually meet him, and I was a little bit worried, to be honest, that he was just gonna not show up and ghost me, which happens all too often on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or I guess it didn't seem so bad on Craigslist, but for whatever reason on Facebook Marketplace, people just seem to disappear into the weeds like Homer Simpson did when he was hiding in the bushes. So I'll check in with you guys when we get the drive shaft, and hopefully it's not all dinged up and it's going to be everything that it's said to be. So I'll see you guys at the gas station. Alright, so here it is in all of its glory. This is still the factory FBody Yoke for 9802 Camaro Firebird. This hasn't been rebuilt, but it's nice and tight. There's no dings or anything on it, and the dude actually like went through and polished this whole thing, which is kind of cool. I didn't realize that, but here you can see where it's actually weight balanced on the front and rear of it. It also has a big dampener on the front snout of it, which is kind of good too. It's got a rebuilt Spicer joint on it, and the only thing I'm a little unsure of, and he was unsure of, is whether or not this is actually just going to fit my 10 bolt, because he tried to adapt it to a 9 bolt, but it didn't fit. So I suspect that this SH36 Spicer constant velocity joint here is actually for a 10 bolt. I looked it up and it should fit a 1310 series yoke, which I believe is the factory 10 bolt series yoke. So I think this will be good to go for my car. It didn't fit his 9 bolt, which is a good thing. I'll hop back in the truck and we'll head back to the house. Alright, so I'm back out in the garage after a couple of days of waiting. I gotta get the Corvette out of here and make some room for the Camaro to come in and actually install this. We just got done with a little bit of a drive, so I'm gonna fire this up. We'll get the car, and it's a nice day. ZL6 is gonna sit outside for a little bit. I do have a couple of cool parts coming for this car. I've also got more stuff on order for the Camaro, but for now, let's get this drive shaft in. So this mod predominantly is about weight savings. Now what I've got here is a little bit of a scale. We're going to see what it weighs. I'm going to call this 12 pounds even. We'll call it 12.1. So the stock one is 12.1 pounds. I'll weigh the steel one when I get it out, assuming this one's going to fit, and we'll see what the weight difference is. So if you'll come with me under the car, this is going to be something very simple that anybody can do in their garage or driveway. You don't need special tools. As you'll see here, this is the U-joint of the drive shaft. These are 7/16 bolts that hold straps on. And let's see if I can rotate this. And what you'll see there's a strap on each cap. Now all you got to do to take the drive shaft out of any vehicle like this is undo these straps, and the drive shaft should pop out and slip out of the back of the transmission's output shaft. So this should be very simple. Anybody can do it. This drive shaft is smaller in diameter than the aluminum one that I bought, but it is heavier. So what I'm going to hopefully do is have one that's approximately as strong, but way less. Everything under the car is pretty well shot. The exhaust is all kinds of booger welded together. As you can see here, the rear sway bar end links are all junk and probably OEM. There's going to be a lot of work I can do to this car. There is a little bit of scale and surface rust and stuff like that, but for now, what I'm focusing on is making it quicker. Like any good car guy, that is your #1 priority. You can see a little bit better. This is the rust that I've seen on the car, so it's not perfect, but it's something. So right around that body drain plug where water sits on these cars, that's common. But everywhere else under here is pretty good. The pinch weld peeled. The pinch weld is peeling a little bit, so it's not perfect, but that's something that I'm going to be able to clean up and hopefully limp along for quite a few more years. So enough of me rambling on about this. The car's starting to drip dry a little bit, which is good. And I'm going to go ahead and start taking the drive shaft out, and hopefully in not too long we'll have the replacement one in.
The brakes are broken, I can't slow down, I won't
Alright, so I've got the two drive shafts side by side. You can see that the aluminum one is noticeably larger in as far as shaft diameter goes. The U-joints, I'm suspecting that the one that I got is also wrong for this 10 bolt that I've got. The cap that's on this one is a little bit bigger than what's on this one, and it seems as though the depth or whatever it would be that engages those straps is a little bit more as well. I'd say there's a good chance that this one is wrong. I guess there's not much to do with it other than see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, I'm gonna have to get the right U-joint for it, which kind of sucks, but so far I knew it was a gamble buying it. I'll just have to figure out what the correct one is, and I'll have to press in the correct one at some point. I'm gonna see if this drive shaft fits at all. I suspect it won't, and I'm not gonna feel good about sending it down the road, so we'll see what happens. But all right, so we will see what the stock steel drive shaft weighs, and it is noticeably heavier. So it's looking like it's right at 16 pounds, depending how I balance it. So we got 16 pounds on here, dead nuts. We're gonna call it 4 pounds lighter. So you're losing 4 pounds of rotational mass on the car, which I think is a good thing you can do if it's for not as much money, if it's for as much money as I spent on it. Even if I'm into it for another U-joint, this is probably something I'm gonna be able to get locally, and I think I can swap this out no problem here, especially being it's just been apart and there's no miles on it. So I'm gonna keep cranking on this. I'll see if it fits. I've got low hopes for it, but I'll let you guys know what happens. What better way to go get a U-joint than in the Corvette, which is already outside. Luckily enough, where I live right now, they actually haven't salted the roads in the city yet. On the highways, or the interstates, they have, but just driving around like this, no problem. It's just cold out, there's some snow in the ditches. So I'm gonna go run to the parts store real quick, pick up this U-joint, and hopefully it's gonna be the right one. It should match what's in the 10 bolt that's in the car right now for the most part. So I'll report back when I get back to the shop with you guys. Alright, so we made it back home with the drive shaft, and I do have a couple of options for joints. The lady that pulled these up showed that these are both for 82 to 2002 Camaros and Firebirds, so it's going to be one or the other. The one in the smaller box is 1mm larger, the 5795X versus the 53147X, so I'll see which one looks best and I'll get one in. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is actually just replace this U-joint, and hopefully what it's going to be is very easy because it's already been replaced. Now, I read online a little bit that this is going to be tough, and that's probably true on a factory joint and a factory drive shaft, but as you can see, I'm missing some width here, and I'm thinking I'm also missing some width on that length, I guess. I've never done this before, so you got to forgive me. I don't really know the terminology. I'm not like the expert on this, so it just seems like this joint is too small both ways, although it's the same diameter, if that makes sense. So I'm thinking when I'm all done, it's going to sit flush in here, and what should happen, when I grab one of my caps, is that when it's butted up to the clip there, see how it's not even close? It's about the same difference by what I'm seeing. So it should sit inside of here just a little bit, but it shouldn't be too much. So what I'm going to do is start taking this apart. You do that by taking out the C-clips on the inside of both of the joints. And what I'm going to need is a big socket and a vise. Now what's very, very important, and I can't say this enough, is to not put a steel or aluminum drive shaft in a vise anywhere in here and start actually tightening it, because you could kink this and it's going to fail prematurely. You might wrap it up, or it's going to be out of balance because you've now shrunk part of it. So do not put it in the vise. I don't have a U-joint holder, but what I'm going to try and do is set it in the vise like this on the joint itself, and that's going to be my working area. So I'll work around it. I've got a socket that's a larger diameter than the hole here. So with what I've got here, I should be able to drive this out fairly easily, I hope, and I guess we'll see what happens. It's my first shot at it. I'm kind of referring to PTI's video on this, so if you want to have an expert tell you how to do it, check out another video. This is not the one, but I'm going to take a shot at it. I'm equipped to do it. So this will be my first time. Wish me luck.
Now you clouds are all gone.
Alright, so overall, being that this one had already been replaced, if I was set up to go with a joint on the table, and I've never done this before, I have a, you just have to have a basic understanding of what you need to do with the sockets to drive things in and out without damaging caps or the drive shaft. If I wasn't recording all this, it would have been like 15 minutes from start to finish. So this is something that you guys can do. It's pretty tough, I guess, when these are in factory form. There's some sort of goop in here, or somebody might be able to comment on this. I haven't done it before, obviously. So I got lucky and this one was already rebuilt. I got it all greased up. All the little gaskets swelled up and some poured out of the loose side. So I'm ready to get you back on the little camera over there. We'll stab this thing back in under the car, and hopefully that's going to be all we've got for this install. One thing I am going to do before I actually install this is just go around this once with some ATF and some steel wool. And I just want to make sure that there's nothing that's going to tear up the tail shaft bushing on the transmission and start a leak. As you can see by the color of the fluid that came out, it's looking more like oil than anything. It's a little red in there, but it is well past its prime, so I'm going to have to change the fluid on here too. But for now, I'm going to get this drive shaft up in there. I'll have to fight the torque arm out of the way and try and slip this thing in, so it's kind of a one-man show, and it's going to go okay. The U-joint now is the same size as the factory 10-bolt one, so if you guys out there are doing it, the spicer joint that I used, and the part number at this time is it's a 53147X, and it comes with the clips and everything in it. You just need your own grease and tools. So that's all I got for the U-joint swap. This is pretty basic. More info can be found online. I'll get this cleaned up and I'll see you guys into the car. Having some more decent weather out. It's weird. This time of year there should be a bunch of snow and whatnot on the ground already, so can't beat that. I'll let the car warm up for a little bit. Obviously the windshield's all frosted over and everything, so I'll scrape it and hopefully we'll get out of here pretty quick. So it is the next day, and when I drove around the car, it was already dark out last night when I was done actually working on the car, which is funny because it was only like 5 o'clock, but it gets dark really early here this time of year. The first thing that I noticed is that the car does feel a little bit quicker. The way that I likened it in my head driving it, I pictured it as probably having a similar or the same effect as installing like a lightweight flywheel or something like that. Now, obviously at idle the engine's not going to rev quicker with this drive shaft, but under power or acceleration it does accelerate quicker. It comes out to about 4 pounds lighter than the factory steel drive shaft that came in this car on the scale that I weighed it on, so I'd imagine that they may vary a little bit from car to car, but they should come out to about the same weight savings no matter how you weigh them. still stabs up and down inside of the center console a little bit. It does appear to have the factory rubber bushing still installed in it, so that's something that I'm going to fix with the polyurethane bushing that I've got coming already. Along with doing a basic transmission service, I'm going to have a pretty good driving little car here. Now, I believe the exhaust leaks that I still have, which are horrendous, are actually under the engine bay. The colder out it gets, the louder they are on a cold start, and the bolts actually just seem to be really rusty, so I'm pretty concerned about taking them off. I'm sure you guys have. I have before too. It's not the job that I'm worried about. I'm worried about actually snapping bolts off in the cylinder head, which is very likely and not uncommon. So that's one thing to consider when you're doing any sort of this stuff, is what you're doing going to be worth the outcome. So unfortunately, when you do stuff like that, you might have a whole new set of problems that you didn't have before. So that's something that I'm still going to tackle, but overall, the car seems to be running pretty good. So that's what I think about doing the aluminum drive shaft installation on a third gen Camaro and Firebird. This should go really easy if you guys have the proper U-joint or what actually comes on it from the factory, so you probably won't even have to do what I did if it's not worn out or whatever. If it is worn out, it's something that you guys can do too. If you got to heat it up, I'd probably get a MAP gas torch instead of using a propane one. Aluminum is going to dissipate heat really well, and what it's going to do is take forever to heat up, so pouring some more heat into it's going to help. I guess that's my 2 cents on it. It's pretty straightforward. You're gonna lose a few pounds and the car will feel a little bit quicker. It's obviously not a fast car or anything like that, but it is getting better and it's getting more fun to drive each time I work on it. One thing that's really bugging me on it is those exhaust leaks. It's sounding worse and worse every time I drive it and I hate it, but I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do to actually fix it because I'm really worried about snapping some manifold bolts. Otherwise, that's pretty much all I've got for today's video. If you guys liked it, I hope you did. Give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you turn on your post notifications so when a new video gets uploaded you guys hear about it right away and you can check it out. If you thought it was a good little bit of info, share it with your friends or someone else that's got a third gen that should be looking out for the same part. You can have these for right around $100. That's what I paid for this drive shaft. So all in all, I think I got my money's worth, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next video.